What's up, everybody? Welcome to The Word on Woodward. I'm Daniela Bruce, and joining me right now is our host, Art Regner. Art, how you doing today?
I am doing well, Danielle. It's sunny outside. It's going to be 60. And then as the day progresses, tomorrow Old Man Winter rears its ugly head again. And that's what the beauty of living in Michigan. So I'm taking full advantage of today's nice weather.
I was just going to say, you got to take advantage of the days that we do get in Michigan, and hopefully this last little bit of winter weather will be the last of it for the rest of the season.
Wow, we're going to get snow, too. I can't wait. You know, nothing like snow in May that really just makes you become reflective about maybe I should move.
Yeah, not good. So yeah, time to talk about better things, Art, because we've got a really exciting show today. Dana Wakiji is going to join us. We've got Matt Shepard joining us, and we've got exclusive interviews with Tigers prospect Matt Manning. Every time I go to say his name, it's a little tongue twister. And then we've got Redwings prospect Joe Veleno will also be joining us. And for our headliner today, we've got the Tigers Director of Amateur Scouting, Scott Pleiss. So like I said, jam-packed show today. We're really excited, but let's kick this thing off with the Big Three presented by our friends at Chevrolet. And today's Big Three is going to be started with talking about the Korean baseball organization. As we know, Art, that kicked off earlier this week. And a couple of former Tigers played really well in the games that they were playing in for that Korean baseball organization team. Warwick Saupold pitched a complete game, and he only allowed 2 hits in their victory on Tuesday. And then you got Dixon Machado, who had 4 RBIs and 2 hits. It was just like really cool to see some baseball return. And then we see some familiar names in there too.
Well, certainly. I mean, I think what we're learning during this the stay at home and during this COVID-19 pandemic is just how much people crave competition. And, Suppold was, he wasn't a bad pitcher for the Tigers, obviously the Australian guy, and he plays for the, I love the Hanwha Eagles. And then Machado, who plays for the, I believe it's Lotte Giants. Machado was a player that I think the Tigers really had high hopes for. I thought that, he could be a potential everyday infielder for Detroit. So it's just great to watch. They have great power. And I think that I just think that we're just ready and starved for something that's going to take us out of our routine. I think if you were to ask anybody when we had Jason Beck on, I mean, he stayed up all night to watch Korean baseball. And I'm pretty sure a year ago, nobody would have been saying that. I mean, that just is great. But, hey, you wish him well. Once a Tiger, always a Tiger in my book. So hopefully those fellas will continue to thrive and do what they love, which is playing baseball. And it's good to see.
Yeah, it's great to see some sports back. And obviously we noticed that the empty stadiums, they are playing without fans. And that is something that we may see more of in the future. But hey, like you said, Art, great to see some baseball on the TV, even if you do have to stay up all night to watch it.
I love baseball. So, Korean baseball, Japanese league, the high school down the street, it's a company, Danielle, again, I know I'm sounding a little bit redundant here, but it's just the competition to watch people complete. The one thing I've always liked about sports is it's truly kind of a mind over matter thing. You see things, and what's the greatest thing, and I've been into a number of locker rooms. I know Dana Wakiji, who's about to join us, can attest to it. When you ask an athlete, when they do something extraordinary on the field, 10 out of 10 of them can't explain exactly what they did. Because they're so in tune, they're so in the zone, and that's just a beautiful thing to see. It's like as I said, mind over matter, the human spirit taking control of your body and allowing you to do extraordinary things. That's why I love sports. That's why I love competition, and I think that's why we're all kind of looking forward to anything at this point to come back. I might even watch NASCAR.
I agree with you there. Oh, wow. Yeah, NASCAR, you still got that coming up. So we're going to have to tune into that one. All right, let's move on to our second topic of the Big Three today. And we're going to talk about the Children's Foundation fundraiser. The Children's Foundation has partnered with iHeartRadio for the hashtag #ICareMichigan campaign. And this is to raise money for families in need during this COVID-19 pandemic. And of course, it supports the children that are most vulnerable in this. And here you can see Paws taking part in the iCareMichigan challenge. So basically what you do is you draw on your hand where you're from in Michigan, and you put the heart where he is from. So obviously Paws is going to put Detroit. So I would kind of put the same one, it'd be like right there. And so you put a little hand and then you share your picture and I care Michigan. There you go, Art.
Yeah, I'm here. I live here. But I'm going to make the UP too. Can't forget the UP, right? So there you go.
Can't forget, but how are you going to point? How are you going to point?
I guess with my nose.
That's awesome.
I'm not sure. But hey, great cause, and I love the creativity, the way people are banding together, and raising money for great charities, great things, and certainly the Tigers and the Redwings have really been at the forefront of doing this, and it's just a good and creative thing. And Paws, I'll tell you though, Paws is Paw. I don't know. Maybe the state of Michigan needs to go on a diet a little bit. That was a big state of Michigan.
It was Great the paw instead of the mitten. It's a little different, but yeah, hey, he got the paw.
Yeah. Well, Wisconsin at one time claimed that they were the mitten state. They had some sort of campaign last year. I don't know if people remember that. I'm not sure how you can get Wisconsin looking like a mitten when Michigan is so prevalent. But hey,
I'm trying to make Wisconsin out of my hand right now. No.
Yeah. Like Wisconsin's like this or something. I don't know. I mean, it's definitely not a mitten.
Yeah, no, they can stick to the cheese. We get the mitten.
Yeah, really. And it's wonderful. Cheese is a wonderful product. It's not the automobile, but hey.
So somehow we went from I Care Michigan to talking about cheese. But guys, remember, I Care Michigan, share that hashtag with your hand and put a heart around where you're from in Michigan. You can share that on your social media accounts. Let's move on to the third topic in our big three today, which is Tyler Bertuzzi. He did a Q&A with the NHL via Twitter, and he answered some really fun questions. I think we even got to find out his favorite ice cream. But one of the best questions that he answered was what it was like to put that winged wheel on for the first time. And I think he really did enjoy it. Looks like we're having a little bit of a technical difficulty with the audio on this one, but basically he said that it was something that he would always cherish, putting the winged wheel on. And we know we hear that from a lot of players because the winged wheel is a very significant thing to wear, right, Art?
Well, without question, it's an iconic logo. Mm-hmm. It's an original 6 team. And, that's virtually whatever any player the Red Wings acquire or they draft or finally, go through the system. When they put it on for the first time for their first professional game, they all talk about it. I mean, I would say that, there's a lot of things I like in life. And, and growing up, and I always wanted to play for a Detroit team in some capacity. I always have this expression I always say, better than my mom's spaghetti, because my mom's spaghetti is the best. And so the only thing that would top my mom's spaghetti would definitely be wearing a Detroit jersey. That is the ultimate, playing for your hometown team. I can just imagine how Dylan Larkin must feel every time he puts it on. That's the team he grew up in. And what's really funny about that is his dad, Kevin Larkin, from Canada, from Toronto, always wanted Dylan to be a Leafs fan. And he might have switched Colin, Dylan's older brother, into maybe being a Leafs fan. But Dylan was a hardcore Red Wing fan from the time he was a little boy. So you can just imagine that feeling of putting on that jersey. And I know Tyler, who didn't grow up that far from here, and a lot of people in Southern Ontario are Red Wing fans. That's a great feeling. And Tyler, what a year he had too. Tyler Bertuzzi, he is one of those, 200-foot players. He goes into the greasy areas to score goals. He has pretty good hand-eye coordination. They always tease him about his shot, but he had over 20 goals this year. So, his shot's not too bad.
Definitely. Both Tyler Bertuzzi and Dylan Larkin, we're happy to see both of them wearing the wing wheel. I think fans will agree with us on that one.
No doubt. Can't forget Big Tony, though. We love you, BT.
Oh, yeah. We'll give him some love too. Big Tony. Anthony Mantha, for those of you that don't know, Art calls him Big Tony. So yeah, we're happy to have all of those guys in the winged wheel. And that is our big three for today, everybody. A big thank you to our friends at Chevy. When our country is faced with adversity, we find a way to get through it. Chevrolet is committed to helping you in any way that we can, from answering your vehicle questions related to service and everything in between. Visit ChevyCares.com to learn more. Now we're going to get into the mailbag, and this one is delivered by our friends at Little Caesars. And for today's mailbag segment, we're going to bring in the senior content producer, Dana Wakiji. She's with us at the Detroit Red Wings. Dana, so great to have you today. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Danielle. It's good to see both of you.
It's always great to see you, Dana. Always great to see you. And we're so excited to have you. And you guys, I want to jump right into this because we've got some really good questions for today's mailbag. And Dana, you're going to take the first one. And this is Tim from Windsor. And he asks, if the Wings draft first or second, do you see that player being in the lineup for opening night?
Well, the first thing to consider is that because things are so strange right now, nobody's skating. Nobody really can practice the way they normally would or work out the way they normally would. So it's going to be even more difficult for a player just drafted this year to make it for the season. But having said that, if the Wings were to get the number 1 overall pick and take the consensus number 1 player, Alexis Lafreniere, I do think that he would have a very good chance of being in the lineup on opening night, whenever that might be. Now, if they were to pick second and take Quentin Byfield, the big 6'4" kid from Ontario Hockey League, he is the youngest player. He played on Team Canada this year and won the gold medal along with Joe Veleno, who you guys are going to talk to soon. And he was the youngest player, so he doesn't even turn 18 until August. So I would think that if he were the player, that he would most likely need a little more time to develop before he could make the team this year.
Definitely. And I know this question is really relevant right now because of one of the proposals that the NHL has put forward to have the draft in early June, and that would increase the Red Wings' chances to getting the number 1 pick. I think it's 57 to be exact, but I know it's over a 50% chance of getting that number 1 pick. So that question becomes really, really relevant.
Absolutely.
Art,
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I hope
you.
she adopted.
I know you do. I know you do. And,
I'm into it. Thank you, NHL.
Question 2 for you, Art. Matt from Troy wants to know the game on Monday, and he's talking about the classic games aired on Fox Sports Detroit. Actually, we'll go with this one first, Art. What are your favorite Tigers nicknames? And that is Matt from Troy. I'll give you the one that I was thinking of for your second question, but start with this one. What are your favorite Tigers nicknames?
Well, I think baseball has a lot of great nicknames. I think they're pretty original, unlike hockey nicknames, which are basically your last name with a Y on it or something. Mine, they kind of go back to childhood, really. I mean, I guess my all-time favorite nickname is Sweet Lou Whitaker. Sweet Lou, because he's my favorite Tiger. I love Lou Whitaker. He should be in the Hall of Fame. But there are 3 that stand out, and they go back to, my team, the 68 Tigers, Stormin' Norman Cash. I always loved Stormin' Norman. And then the other ones, I'm not sure George Kell gave these or not. But Willie Horton, whenever Willie Horton would hit a home run, it would be Willie the Wonder. He would call him Willie the Wonder. And then, of course, you've got to have William Brown, better known as Gates Brown, the Gator, who was I think the best, perhaps the best pinch hitter in all of baseball history. But those were always it. Gator, Willie the Wonder, Stormin' Norman, and, of course, Sweet Lou. Those are the names that I've always liked.
Dana, I'm going to have you answer this question too, because I know you spent some time working with the Tigers and covering the Tigers. So what was your favorite nickname?
Wow. Well, that's kind of funny because most of the guys didn't have like the most original nicknames from I started covering the team in mid-90s. So, but, I always thought that the best one was the Bird for Mark Fidrich. Even though I didn't cover him, I just love that name because of his antics on the mound. He seemed like kind of a bird. So I thought that was a good one to have.
Dana, did you get to watch that game the other night when he pitched his no-hitter?
No, I didn't watch it, but I've seen clips of that before, and it's just so sad that unfortunately he was taken too early from us because he was an original character.
Definitely. And we're going to talk a little bit more about him later in the show, but I want to get to question 3. Dana, this one is for you, and it's Greg from Port Huron. And Art was talking a little bit about Tyler Bertuzzi in our Big 3 segment. Do you think he is untouchable when it comes to the Red Wings roster?
Okay, well, it's kind of funny because I have like this connection with Tyler because I feel like I've covered his entire career from the time he was drafted. I remember being at his last development camp where he was like the oldest player there, and he was sort of guiding all the young kids in the drills because they'd done them so many times, and then seeing him make the Wings and then become the player that he was this year, which was the All-Star. So I would love to see him stay, but I know that on a team like this with Steve Yzerman, you can't guarantee that. If Steve Yzerman got the right offer, I don't think anybody is untradeable on this team. Now, having said that, I think he would probably want a lot. So it would depend on if a team were willing to give what Steve Yzerman wanted to have in exchange. Now, Jeff Blashill has always said that he would love to see Tyler Bertuzzi on a team in the playoffs because when he was in the AHL, he obviously was the top performer, won the MVP of their Calder Cup run. And also when he was with Guelph, it just seems like that time of year, his skill set comes to the forefront and he is able to contribute because he always gets those greasy goals. He goes to the net, he goes to the corner. So it really seems to fit his style. So it'd be great to see him still here when the Wings are contending again. But again, Steve Yzerman, I don't think anyone's untouchable for him.
Dana, I think you worded that very well because I think everyone wants to see Tyler Bertuzzi here in Detroit wearing a Red Wings jersey. And he is arguably the top player on the team as of right now, but untouchable is a really strong word. Art, how do you feel about it?
Well, I think Dana hit it right on the head. I think Tyler Bertuzzi is also a bit of an abrasive player, and he doesn't take many penalties. I think when he's younger, kind of lost it like most young people do. And so, but, he's matured in that area. I think that out of current Red Wing players, and maybe, I don't know, Dana's right. I don't think anybody is really untouchable on this team unless Anthony Mantha becomes a 40-goal scorer or something. He will not go anywhere. But I think in a trade, depending on where the Red Wings are at, Tyler Bertuzzi is the type of player that other teams want. They want to cherish. Dana said it. I mean, Jeff Blashill said he's going to be great in the playoffs because he was great in the playoffs for Grand Rapids. So I think he could get you something in value, whether that's a defenseman. They don't really trade for goaltenders or something like that. I could see eventually, depending on where Steve believes the Red Wings are, if he has to make a major deal, I would think, let's put it this way. I think teams would ask for Tyler Bertuzzi in a trade. He's that valuable of a player.
Agreed with you there, Art. Let's move on to question 4. I'm going to have both of you answer this. Art, you can answer first. Trent from West Bloomfield asked, watching the Verlander no-hitter last night and was wondering what other sports feat is on par with a pitcher throwing a no-no.
I don't think there is anything. I mean, I'm thinking about this, and I think the only thing would be if a hitter could go 7 for 7 like Cesar Gutierrez did, a long time ago for the Tigers, or Joe DiMaggio's hitting streak or a long hitting streak. I think it's such a personal thing to throw a no-hitter. Granted, you need your teammates behind you in fielding, and I'm sure there's always a couple of defensive gems that are made, but really it's just one-on-one. It's that pitcher throwing that baseball. The two hardest things to do in sports, in all of sports, are throw a baseball and hit a baseball. And when you're able to throw a no-hitter, I think it's really unbelievable. What comes to mind, I guess, would be in tennis, if you can win all 4 Grand Slam events in the same year. The Australian Open, the French Open, Wimbledon, and then the US Open, something like that, because I just think it's such an individual thing. I can't really, maybe a perfect game. Maybe a perfect game would be, but then again, that's a no-hitter, but now you get 27 straight outs. I mean, that's a real difficult question. That's a really, really difficult one. I would have to think about that one because I don't think it gets much better than a no-hitter. And I know when we had Jack Morris on, I talked to him about this. When he threw that no-hitter in Chicago, it was the first time since 1958 that a Tigers pitcher had thrown a no-hitter, and that was back in 1984. So for me, even though they seem to be, and Dana can comment on this, they seem to be prevalent. I mean, it seemed like last year in baseball, every other week a guy was throwing a no-hitter, which I don't understand, but I just think that is such a hallmark for a pitcher and such an individual feat in all of sports. Boy, that it's tough to beat a no-hitter.
All right, Dana, what do you think?
Well, it is tough to beat a no-hitter. I agree. But I think that probably maybe it's becoming a little more common just because of the way the game has shifted to more emphasis on the home run and the launch angle and all that. So more people are striking out or hitting home runs. So there's less opportunity to, get those infield hits and whatnot. So, maybe that's why it's becoming more common. But it is a singular achievement, and you do need your teammates to help you. I don't know, while you were talking, Art, I was thinking maybe, something along the lines of like a boxer who gets in the ring and one punch and he knocks the guy out. I don't know, because that's so rare, but I don't know. It would be tough unless you're thinking maybe, I don't know, somebody who scores like 60 points in basketball, because I know 50 points has been done a fair amount, but maybe something higher than that. Or even maybe hitting for the cycle, because that's kind of a rare thing too. But I guess that doesn't seem as special.
Dana, hitting for the cycle, I agree with you there. I think that I think you're right there. I mean, yeah, the only guy I can remember when Mike Tyson first started, he was fearless. I mean, didn't he punch out Leon Spinks or whatever it was with one punch? I mean, that is quite a feat because, these guys obviously are in excellent shape and trained for the bout. Mm-hmm. But if you could knock a guy out with one punch, and the first punch, like it seemed like, Iron Mike did back then, but it's extraordinary. Again, going back to what I said earlier, just watching the competition and what just a regular man, made, conceived like we all were and, grew up and did everything that we've all done, to see them do something like that, which isn't done every day, to me, it's extraordinary. It's just extraordinary.
Well, what about this one? I've kind of gone back and forth on this because it is something that doesn't happen very often, but I don't know if it even comes close to a no-hitter, a hole-in-one in golf. What do you think? No, nothing.
Yeah,
okay.
No,
Thanks,
I think a hole-in-one is pretty tough too.
Yeah,
no, I agree. I think a hole-in-one is pretty tough.
Especially at the professional level, because they make the hole so difficult to get to. So I think that would be different. Right. Like if you're just on a regular golf course, I don't know about that.
Well, what about a high school baseball player? Does that still?
Well, then he's against peers, so.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was a great question. We should open it up to the audience and see what they think, because that could be something that we could really get into. Yeah, I mean, I really think so. I think I know, because I'm stumped. I'm very rarely at a loss for words. So.
Yeah, that's very true. And he was at a loss for words on that one, guys. So yeah, if you have an opinion on this, greater feat or as great of a feat as pitching a no-hitter, let us know in the comments wherever you're watching, and we'll try to get to those later in the show. Dana, as always, thank you for joining us. It was great. And you might have to think about that question a little bit too and tweet at us or something if you think of something else.
Will do, you guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Dana. And thank you to our friends at Little Caesars for bringing us the mailbag. You get a large pizza topped with pepperoni, fresh mozzarella, and a toasted Parmesan and Asiago cheese crust for just $7. That's the Little Caesars Hot and Ready Pepperoni Cheeser. Try our no-contact pizza portal or delivery from Little Caesars. Guys, we've still got a lot coming up in this show. We're going to have a Matt Manning interview, which is coming up in just a couple of minutes. And we'll have Joe Veleno, Matt Shepard, and Scott Place later in the show. For now, let's catch up with Carly.
Thanks, Daniela. That's right. It's time for Catching Up with Carly, presented by Meyer. Today, I'm joined by Detroit Tigers prospect Matt Manning. How's it going over there, Matt?
It's going good. Just, practicing my quarantine.
Good. So are you back home in Sacramento, or where are you at?
Yeah, I'm back in Sacramento. I came back here a couple of days after spring training ended and been here since.
Man, look at that weather. What have you been doing to stay busy and continue to train?
I've been playing a lot of golf. I've been working out at my old high school, been throwing on the football field and just kind of staying busy and just, trying to do as much as I can.
Awesome. You were drafted in the first round by the Tigers in 2016. What went through your head when you heard your name called by a team with so much history?
I was really excited about it. Going forward with it, I knew that Derek Hill was drafted by them 2 years earlier, and he's from Sacramento as well. So I knew I had some people I know already in the system, so I felt comfortable with it. But since day one, they kind of brought me in, and it's been history since.
And you had a good season last year. You were named the 2019 Eastern League Pitcher of the Year. How does it feel to have a season like that under your belt?
Feels really good. It's a big confidence boost, especially coming into the big league spring training with all those guys. Just feeling comfortable with where I am in my situation and knowing I don't have to be nervous to go out and throw. And, I can already kind of prove myself that I kind of belong and that I can just go out there and pitch my game.
Okay, and you touched on this a little bit. You were a non-roster invitee of the Detroit Tigers to spring training. Before the season was paused, what kind of impression do you think you left? Can you assess your play during that spring training time?
I thought I left a pretty good impression on the guys. Matt Boyd texts us all the time. I talked with Jordan Zimmerman a lot. I talked with Turnbull, and having those guys reach out to me at this point in my career is really big. Just knowing that they have my back and they're expecting me and my other teammates to get up there and play with them. So I think that's a good impression on them if they're reaching out to me.
Awesome. Good for you. So I understand you played basketball as well and considered playing it over baseball, but what made you decide on sticking with baseball?
I think I just had more of a future in baseball. I thought I could be a little bit better. I was planning to go to college to play both sports, and I was really excited for that. But I just thought getting in here into this situation younger was going to benefit me, and I wasn't really, if I could skip college and I have to worry about midterms and all that testing stuff, I was for it. So I was ready to go.
All right. And speaking of basketball, your dad, Rich Manning, played 8 years professionally, 2 years in the NBA. Well, we have a surprise for you. We did some digging and check this out. We have footage of your dad playing for the Vancouver Grizzlies against the Detroit Pistons in 1996. Check it out. Your dad was 2 for 2 on his three-pointers, for 8 on field goals. Can you assess his play for me?
No, it's funny. I actually have that jersey hanging up in my room right now. That's A1. That's good.
That's
he's a little more physical than I thought he was.
Growing up, did you get to watch him play much?
I was really young. I was probably like 2 or 3 years old when he was playing overseas. So my older brother was probably here at these games. Like, he even gets on the floor. They should make a Last Dance documentary on this guy.
There you go. All right, part 2, Last Dance. You heard it here first. Rich Manning. Is your hoop game similar to your dad?
All net. I mean, yeah, he was taller than I was. So, I mean, I kind of grew late. So I was kind of more of a guard growing up. I could shoot really well and handle the ball. So when I did grow to be 6'6" in high school, it kind of translated over.
Did your dad ever coach your basketball team as a kid?
Yeah, he coached me all the way up to high school. He was assistant coach of the varsity team at my high school for me and my 2 brothers.
Wow. Okay, now what kind of coach was he? Was he your dad, or was he like hard on you as a coach?
He was probably hard on me, but I didn't really let it affect me. It was just kind of I kind of treated it more as this player coach thing. But when we got home, we didn't really talk about it much, so it made it pretty easy on me.
Nice. You left
That's
it
a
on
good
the
shot.
court.
They didn't know about that back then.
Who would win in a game of horse between you two?
Probably me. I'm probably more creative. I could probably, throw some a ball off the wall or something and make it or something like that, or he could just straightforward, shoot threes off the glass or something like that.
You got the trick shots under your belt, huh?
Yeah, that's all I did growing up watching my brother. I just tried to learn trick shots on YouTube.
Love it. All right, now back to baseball. What do you hope to accomplish in this upcoming season as it resumes?
I mean, when we get back to the field, I just want to get in there and make an impression and just, make a difference for the team. If I can get any kind of wins I can. I know we're in a rebuild stage right now, I guess, but every time we take the field, like we're trying to win. We're trying to put good shows on and win games. So, I mean, that's what I want to do.
Awesome. Well, Matt, I hope you and your family stay healthy, happy, and well during this time. I can't wait to see you back out on the mound when the time is right.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks for tuning into Catching Up with Carly, presented by Meyer. Back to you, Daniela.
Thank you, Carly. And I think we might have to set up that horse match between Matt and Rich Manning. That would be pretty interesting. Great interview, Carly. We're going to keep you with us for Bet You Didn't Know, presented by Motor City Casino. And guys, we're back to what could be my losing ways, because today we're going to do two truths and a lie again. And Art has mined Carly's knowledge. Art, I'm nervous, but I think I'm ready for today.
I'm excited.
Well, I'm nervous. Well, I'm nervous for you, Daniela. I mean, Carly, you've got it down. I mean, you're batting 1,000. It'll be fine. Daniela's the one that we really have to worry about. She has not gotten any of these right. So I really kind of, and don't take this the wrong way, Daniela, I kind of dumbed this down today. Okay.
Oh boy. Don't throw salt in her wound. Art, come on now.
I can't even lie. My palms are kind of sweaty. My palms are kind of sweaty. I'm nervous. So
okay, here we go. Yeah, here we go. And remember, even though Michigan State rescinded your degree,
Art, we don't
if you get it right today, I worked it out with the Board of Trustees. You get that degree back if you get this right today. All right.
I thought I got it back already.
No, oh no.
It's hanging up behind you.
No, you did not.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that isn't even worth the ink it's written on or whatever that expression is. So here we go. I am being cruel today. I do apologize. First of all right, here they are. Really, second cup of coffee, love it. But here we go. The Redwings at one time had a mascot called the Winger.
Okay.
The Pistons team playing round ball one is the only team playing in the NBA. And the Tigers once scored 5 unanswered runs after a goose, an actual goose, crashed into the video board. 2 are truths, one is a lie. Well, Danielle needs help.
Well, then do I get to go first then?
Well, usually you defer to Carly.
I know. That's why I'm feeling confident about this one. Today. So I'm going to go ahead. Yeah. All right. I would say my reasonings, but I don't want to give anything away to Carly yet. So I'm going to go with the Pistons team playing being the only one in the NBA.
And I second that. I know the Rally Goose. I mean, who doesn't know about the Rally Goose?
Yeah,
and then I also know about Winger. I mean, I feel like I would be wrong not to know about Winger. So I'm also going to go with the Pistons round ball one playing not being the only one in the NBA.
Well, Carly, your streak is still alive. And Daniela, welcome to the winner's circle. That is exactly right. The Pistons team playing round ball one is not the only team playing in the NBA. But what's interesting about that is at one time that was true. But in 2016, the Pistons retired round ball one. And now the only team that has their own plane is the Dallas Mavericks. So I would imagine that all the other NBA teams charter, have a charter flight. Obviously, they're not going to get fly commercial or anything, but that's really interesting. That is the one. Yeah, you would have to take seats out. You'd have to buy like 5 seats a guy. It's probably not worth it to fly commercial. I think that's kind of surprising though, because I guess I'm so used to the Red Wings having their own plane that I just assumed all sports teams, and I know the Tigers, obviously they share the plane, the Tigers and Red Wings, that they have their own plane. Now, interesting thing about the Winger is that I remember the Winger. It was when Mr. Illich bought the team. I kind of revived the Winger. I am a Winger historian, and the thing that I remember most about the Winger is you can see there he looks like kind of a cross between, I don't know, my gosh, an inbred hawk or something. But the thing about the Winger is that he would lead the team out onto the ice, which led to the classic Red Wings, My Red Wings song, written by Dan Yessian and sang by Larry Santos. So the Winger was around, and it was kind of interesting because usually the goalie leads you off on the ice, leads you onto the ice. The Winger would, and then there was like a 30-second intro to this song. So the Winger is skating around and doing these antics, and you could tell. I've never really talked to many Red Wings about this, but I don't know how thrilled the guys were that the Winger was sharing their ice. And then during the course of the game, the Winger would, be all over and doing, what mascots do. I do think if you look at it, I think the San Diego Chicken was big back then. So maybe the Winger was a little bit of a playoff on that. He did not last very long. I have tried for years to find the costume and also try to revive the Winger, but and then obviously the last one.
I would pay for that.
Oh man, the Winger would be great. It would be interesting to see exactly how fans would react, to the Winger. I think that we're so used to mascots now, and that was still relatively new back in the early '80s when the Winger was around. I think people would enjoy it. There's so many things to do at Little Caesars Arena in Comerica Park that are fan interactive, and and let's face it, Paws is a legend at this point. And, maybe, I don't know. I think bringing the Winger back might be a hard sell, but boy, would that be cool. And then, of course, the Goose game, what can we say? Tigers were down big. The Goose is fine. And they went on a big rallying streak too, So, that was one of those things that too bad they couldn't carry it through the whole season. But that's one of those things that, really gives you a great shot in the arm. When you can see something like that. I think they were down like 6-1 and they came back and won that game against the Angels, early in 2018. So I just have to say, there he is.
Oh, here we go.
And, they tried to catch him, and, he just looks, he looks like a Tigers fan. You can just tell, man. Where's my boys in the old English league? I want to see these guys. Oh.
Poor guy.
Oh, buddy.
Down goes the Goose. There he goes. And then here he comes. Jose.
He just wants to wear that.
And then, you go good drum. And then, the Tigers come back on the Angels. That's cool. That's what makes baseball great too. That was something that the Tigers embraced, and then their whole fans embraced, and everybody was into the Rally Goose there for a while. Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe that should be maybe Paw should have like a pirate has a parrot on his shoulder. Maybe Paw should have a goose or something on his shoulder. It'd be messy though. It would be messy. Goose, as we know, geese are kind of messy.
You don't want to walk on
That
the
was
lawn
a good
after
one.
Goose has been there.
That was a good 2 truths and a lie, mostly because I knew that one. So that good one, Art. That was a great one.
Welcome to the winner's circle, Danielle. It was getting lonely.
And thank you to our at Motor City Casino for bringing us Bet You Didn't Know this week and every week here on the Word on Woodward. Carly, you don't go anywhere though, because I want to talk to you a little bit about what's been going on social media this week. And I know you do a really good job of manning all of our social media channels between the Red Wings and Tigers. What have you seen lately that's been interesting?
Danielle, a lot has been going on between these two organizations. So I'm going to start with a fairly new Instagrammer. We have Ken Daniels now on Instagram. He's been there for a few weeks. He followed me not too long ago. He shared a video of his buddy and fellow broadcaster, Mickey Redmond, making his first Hockey Night in Canada appearance back in 1969 at 22 years old. So check out this video. It's pretty cool.
Mickey, you perfected the wrist shot. Do you try to use it more than the slap shot?
Yes, I do. I think that trying to shoot a slap shot is very difficult because after the players are on you so quickly that you don't have time to wind up and let that slap shot go. So therefore, the wrist shot where you don't have to pull it back so far, you just snap it and let it go is much easier to get away, and it's something that it can really be a big advantage to you in a tight situation. You have to shoot quick, and guys are on you all the time, as I say, so it's something you use in every time you get the puck, you know.
I mean, how cool is it to see a young Mick looking not quite as comfortable as he is these days on camera? But now we're going to switch gears to the Detroit Tigers. It's been beautiful out lately. I mean, today I think it's going to be about 60 degrees. We're really getting into spring. And with that, we wanted to help you out with your lawn care. So who better to hear tips from than Tigers head groundskeeper, Heather Nabozny. So here is a first look at In the Dirt, presented by Carhartt.
Hi, I'm Heather Nabozny, head groundskeeper of the Detroit Tigers. Today we are going to discuss field aeration, core removal, and sand top dressing. Aeration is essentially letting the grass and soil breathe. By puncturing holes in the soil, we are opening up the surface to help gas exchange, water infiltration, nutrient uptake, compaction relief, and thatch layer management. The timing for aeration is very important. The best time is in the spring or the fall when the weather is cooler and the root development is at its peak. Do not aerate in the heat of summer. This leaves the plant susceptible to drying out and not fully recovering. Following aeration here at the ballpark, we use a core collection machine to remove expelled soil plugs. The main reason we do this is so they will not interfere with play. But for at your home, you can leave these plugs to naturally break down over time, adding nutrients to your yard. Once we have removed the cores from all over the field, we spread a USGA spec sand over the entire surface. This helps manage our thatch layer by increasing microbial activity. We want to encourage bugs to munch on the dead roots and stems and other organic matter. Top dressing also helps manage our drainage by filling the holes with channels of sand. If it is feasible for you to top dress your lawn at home, I recommend using compost instead of sand for the added nutrients. I hope you found this helpful. Good luck with your lawn, happy spring, and go Tigers!
How awesome. I expect that all of you will have very green grass this summer. Since we're all at home during this quarantine, you should really be taking care of your lawn. I mean, what else do we have to do, really? Back to you, Daniela.
Thank you, Carly. That was so cool to hear. I'm definitely going to try to use some of those tips on the lawn and get it ready for the summer season, even though it's supposed to snow on Sunday. But still, you can get out there and get your grass ready. And Carly will still be manning our social media accounts, Tigers and Redwings. So if you have any questions for myself, her, or Art, you can go ahead and ask those, and we'll answer them later in the show. Now we're going to get into Downtown Hockeytown, presented by Labatt Blue Light. Today, we are very excited to welcome in Red Wings prospect and current Grand Rapids Griffin, Joe Veleno. Joe, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to join us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We're really excited, and we were chatting a little bit about this offline, but you've been very active on the social media there. You're on Instagram, and you've been doing some really cool trick videos with Always Hockey. Is that how you're staying in hockey condition there?
A little bit. I mean, I try to get outside as much as possible, and obviously I'd reached out to him, was really impressed in what he was doing and all the tricks he was pulling off. But it's obviously something like I try to practice, stick handling outside in my backyard, doing some tricks, learning how to be like him.
Joe, you began your Instagram career, shall we say, with the TP challenge, which you posted. Then you did something with whitening your teeth. I still don't quite understand what that was all about. Then you had the weight up the hill, which I don't even want to get into the whitening the teeth thing. But then you're pulling up the you're pulling up the weight. I don't know if it's a 50-pound weight up the hill. And then you do the stick handling skate one where you're on your rollerblades because you don't have ice right now. I mean, those are fun, but that's kind of to relieve the boredom too, although there is obviously some hockey skill and thinking of hockey going into it.
Yeah, I mean, I still try to do as much as I could do. I know social media has been pretty big right now during this time. So I guess the people who follow me, want to see, what all players have been up to. And, I've been doing some some stuff outside my house that's still kind of hockey related and training related. So I might as well just share that with everyone. And I've been trying to get out there as much as I could, and came a little creative with doing some drills and just kind of stick handling and showing what I could do on rollerblades.
Obviously a bit of strange circumstances for everybody right now, but are you on any like team regulated workout program? Do they got you doing anything just to stay in shape in case the season does resume?
Oh yeah. So the Wings obviously have us, doing our program, and been following that. But some days I'd go over to the hill and work out over there and run some sprints. Other than that, we've just been following a program that obviously the Wings gave us to stay in shape.
Your brother Michael is studying to be a trainer, and I know that you have a gym and he's put some exercises together. How beneficial has it been to have somebody right in your house who you can bounce things off of and who can say, hey, Joe, you're slacking off a little bit today. You've got to hit the weights a little bit harder. I mean, I would imagine that helps you out.
Yeah, it does. For sure. It always helps when someone's there pushing you all the time. I mean, he's been pretty busy with studying. I mean, he finished doing his exams, I think, on Friday. So, but yeah, it definitely helps when, someone's there, watching you and pushing you a little bit. He's been really good older brother to me. He's definitely taught me a lot of things that I learned the hard way with him. We get along really well, and he definitely helps me out in a lot of ways.
Let's talk a little bit about pretty much your first complete year as a professional hockey player. Do a little self-evaluation for us. How do you think that first year went for you?
Well, I enjoyed it. I mean, it was a whole nother experience, a whole nother opportunity that I got to experience. And I thought, being in Grand Rapids, really good city, and obviously I'm familiar with most of the people there. I spent my summer in Detroit, so I was pretty familiar with a lot of the staff already and some of the players. And the first half obviously was an adjustment on the ice. Things, obviously the speed was higher and everything, guys are stronger, and everything was a lot harder than juniors. But I think once I got the opportunity to play in the World Juniors, I gained a lot of confidence there. And when I came back to Grand Rapids, I kind of took my game to another level and used a lot of my strengths consistently every day, every game. And I thought I ended up doing quite well second half of the season.
Joe, you mentioned the World Juniors where Team Canada won the gold medal. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did Team USA beat you in that tournament?
No, they didn't.
Oh, I must have been dreaming then. Sorry about that. I was kind of wondering about.
No,
I'm sorry. I shouldn't be messing around with Joe.
We did get a beating from Russia though, so I could say that.
Yeah. But you guys took care of business when you had to. When it was on the line, Team Canada came through, and you were an integral part of that. And what I want to ask you about is that with the upcoming NHL draft, the Wings are going to pick, depending on how it sorts out, they could pick one, they could pick two, they're going to pick no lower than four. There's four definitive players that everyone thinks are going to be in the top four. Two of them were your teammates on, or actually three of them were your teammates on the World Junior team, and then you played against Tim Stützle, the German, in international competition. I'm kind of curious, Alexis Lafreniere, Quentin Byfield, and Jamie Drysdale, any way you look at it, depending on which one of those four, and it's kind of a lock that one of those four is going to be a Red Wing. What can you tell us about those players? And I would imagine you're looking forward to playing with any one of those four.
Yeah, obviously the more Canadians, the better, but they're obviously really good players. They're obviously really good players. I played with three of them, and they're really good kids too, like off the ice. I know Drysdale is more of a, kind of a shy personality, but he's definitely like a really good kid. You can see that. And then Laffy and Quentin, they're two gifted players with a lot of talent, a lot of skill, and obviously really good people too. Like, every guy on that team was really fun to be around. They had obviously their own sense of character, and they couldn't really say anything more about them, but they're elite players that are going to be really good NHL players eventually one day, turn into superstars. But I know Alexei a lot more just by playing with him over the last couple of years, playing against him too in the queue. He's definitely a dominant force. He can, take over the game whenever he wants. And yeah, really good players, all of them.
You were roommates with Mo Sider this year, both of you playing your first year pro. I would imagine that, the hair products that you two must have is immense in your apartment there. But aside from that relationship, that relationship just really kind of blossomed. Can you talk about your friendship with you and Mo? Because obviously you guys really click.
Yeah, he's definitely, the first day I met him, there was just something, we both connected instantly in the summer when I picked him up from the hotel and we'd work out together. We just, at first, the car drives were really quiet, like we didn't have much to say. But, once we started getting familiar with one another, we started talking a lot more and sharing things, and started hanging out too, like outside the gym and outside the rink. We'd, go watch a movie and go out for dinner. So we just got along really well. We had a lot of the same things in common, same type of person almost. And, we just got along really well. So, we ended up sharing an apartment in Grand Rapids together, and, everything went well. And, we both enjoyed, that first year experience, on our own.
Joe, I got to tell you, Art already mentioned yours and Mo's hair once, but he has told me that he's jealous of your hair. He wishes he had as much as you do.
Really? I have okay hair, but I think like right now it's pretty, like, it's long. Like, I don't usually keep it this long, but I don't know. I mean, he's got good hair too. I'm surprised he'd say something like that.
Thank you. All right, let me ask you a serious hockey question. I know your goal, and you've been impressive for the last couple of years at training camp. You've played some preseason games for the Red Wings. You were sent back to Drummondville one year, your junior team, and then obviously you were in Grand Rapids last year. The goal to make the Red Wings your center. You're going to be a center in the NHL. We all know you're going to be a Red Wing. Do you allow yourself to think about, I've got a great opportunity here in Detroit. If I just stick to my guns here, I could be in Detroit very, very soon?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think Detroit's got a lot of opportunity right now, and they're obviously in the midst of rebuilding and, getting some new players and getting some young players into the team. So I see that as a really good opportunity for myself. And obviously I want to, work hard every day to attain that goal and to play for the Red Wings. Obviously it'd be a dream come true just to play in the NHL, but playing for the Red Wings is obviously special. And you look back at all that, all the history they have there, their original 6 team, and beautiful arena and really nice setup for us. So it'd be obviously really awesome to be a Detroit Red Wing for a long time.
One last question for you, Joe. I know you're buddies with Philip Zadina as well, who spent some time in Detroit this season and had a pretty solid rookie season up with the Red Wings. Do you take any advice from him, or has he given you any advice on how to get to that stage?
I mean, yeah, like in the summer, I know we got pretty close. Obviously that our young group that was working out and training on the ice, we spent a lot of time talking to each other. And when he was in Grand Rapids for the first half of the year, he gave us some advice and things to follow and how things are a little bit. So he was, really open person to talk to and share your feelings with, and, asking him questions, whatever you want, he'll answer you. But yeah, he's obviously a great player, and he's worked really hard. Like you see, when he was in Grand Rapids, he was, working out, a lot and kind of showing some good examples and, good signs of leadership, and great person too, really easy to talk to, like I said. But he when he steps on the ice, he's ready to work, and he's ready to play, and really competitive person. So kind of learned that a lot from him. Got to know that he's really pissed when things aren't working out as well, but he wants to be the best, and he's got that compete and that drive to kind of want to be the best player out there all the time.
you so much for joining us today. It was great to have you and great to catch up with you. Glad to see everything's going well, and I hope that you stay safe and healthy during these times. Downtown Hockeytown is brought to you by Labatt Blue Light, refreshing Canadian Pilsner. Visit your local retailer when safe to pick up some Labatt Blue Light. Another big thank you to Joe Veleno for joining us today. And Art, you got some competition with your hair there, but we're going to have to see what our audience thinks here, guys. You got to vote on Twitter, on Instagram, on wherever you are. You got to vote for us on Facebook, YouTube. We've got hashtag Art's Part or hashtag Joe's Flow. Those are two pretty good pictures of you guys too there, Art.
Yeah, mine was professionally done. Hey, I'm voting for Joe. I mean, that kid's head of hair is extraordinary. I mean, there is no doubt about it. I mean, I always rag on him. Look, I know Joe very well. I mean, I really like him a lot. And the reason is he's one of our bloggers on our Taking Flight blog series. He's been blogging for over 2 years now. So I talked to him when he was in Drummondville and then obviously last year in Grand Rapids. So he's going to be a wonderful Red Wing. He's going to be a guy that Detroiters are going to be proud that type of not only player that he is, but the individual he is wearing that Detroit uniform. Doesn't get much better than Joe Veleno. I can remember him. I never asked him this question. When he was drafted by the Red Wings, he was Joseph Veleno. And we said, well, can we call you Joe? And he goes, no, Joseph. Somehow that has morphed into Joe Veleno. So, but he's just great there. You know, as you can tell, I mean, his hair a little too, you know, that cut just does not look good on him. I'm sorry, Joe. That's I'm glad you're wearing a Red Wing cap there. That you know, you got to let those locks flow, my friend. I
agree with you there, Art. I like it longer.
The brush cut or Princeton or whatever you want to call that thing, the shaved look is not for Joe Veleno. There we are. That's what we're talking about.
That's going to be the signature look right there. Right?
You know, our next guest has a good head of hair too.
Yeah, there you go, Art. Why don't we bring in our next guest and get into Brush Street Beat presented by our friends at McLaren? And joining us on today's Brush Street Beat is Fox Sports Detroit broadcaster, Tigers play-by-play, Matt Shepard. Matt, thank you so much for joining us again today. We're really excited to have you.
Daniela and Art, honored to be with you guys again. Had a blast last time, and I expect the same today.
And we're going to talk to you about some of the Tigers Classic games that have been running on Fox Sports Detroit. But first, I'm sure you're really itching for some baseball to get back even more than most of us. But why don't you tell us about your first full season as the Tigers play-by-play?
Well, look, it was a blast, an absolute blast. A lot of people thought that it would be tiresome and almost too routine, that it was a grind. You hear that about baseball all the time, Daniela, but for me, it was a thrill to go to the ballpark every single day, to be able to work with the people I got the chance to work with and learn from the people I had a chance to learn from. My favorite part is actually before the broadcast. I just love hanging around the batting cage and talking to coaches and watch players put swing on ball after swing on ball and going around the clubhouse and talking to guys and, you know, just asking about their day, not necessarily baseball wise, but getting to know them as people. So I'm looking forward to baseball restarting again and getting a chance to reintroduce ourselves to some of the new Tigers and then catch up with some of the guys who've been there for a while.
Matt, I think the one thing that I find interesting, I mean, you know, we're old radio dogs. Let's be honest here. You know, radio is it's part of who we are. It's in our DNA. I would imagine baseball, there's a lot of time in between pitches or strategy or going out to the mound. How much did your radio background help you? Because let's be honest, we both can, you know, fill some dead air.
No, it's a great question because TV and radio, I embrace both. I love them both, but they're vastly different. In radio, you have to carry the broadcast. You guys have had, Dan Dickerson here on the Word on Woodward numerous times, and he's got to carry that broadcast. In television, I think it's more about the analysts. So it's more about Kirk Gibson or Jack Morris or Dan Petrie or Craig Monroe, where you just kind of set them up and you let the producer and director in the truck kind of show the shots that you would like to show, and you get into storylines. The beauty of baseball is I think it's supposed to be a conversation. I enjoy just talking with those guys, picking their brains on what they would do in certain situations, but also storytelling during a broadcast. And you don't get that in basketball, football, or hockey quite as much. So for me to be able to do all four of those major sports, do them on Fox Sports Detroit, do them here in my home city of Detroit, it's been an honor. But baseball holds a very special place in my heart because of the ability to storytell with the analyst I work with.
Shep, thanks to everybody at Fox Sports Detroit. We're able to watch some baseball at some past Tigers Classic games. And I've been following your Twitter account, and you got to watch that Monday night in baseball with the bird on the mound with your son. What was it like to kind of teach him about that type of baseball, kind of, share it with the next generation?
Well, I've got to be upfront and honest here, because my 21-year-old son watches basically two sports. He watches hockey and lacrosse because he was a college lacrosse player. He grew up playing hockey and lacrosse. Those are his favorites. So when I was watching this game in my family room and he came up from workout in the basement, I said to him, I want you to watch some of this with me. And he said, Dad, I can't. It's baseball. I said, please just watch a little bit of it with me. So we start to watch it, and he's like, man, I can't believe how fast this game is going. And I start to educate him a little bit about the bird, about 76, about Rookie of the Year, about his All-Star campaign, about how he was discovered, about the bird is the word, right? And Sesame Street. And when I was a kid, the Free Press had an iron-on decal that you could put on a T-shirt. And my mom did that for me. And I ran around the front yard wearing it every single day while I was playing baseball. And the more we watched the game, Daniela, the more he recognized that when it's played like that, it's beautiful. And he actually said to me, man, I could watch this. If baseball were played at this pace, I could watch this. Now, I can watch it at any pace, but for a younger generation, they want something a little bit more instant, a little bit quicker. Now, I've always argued with people about this because last year, I think an average NFL game was about 3 hours and 15 minutes, and you only get 11 minutes of action. Baseball last year, the average is about 3 hours and 11 minutes. So it's not quite as long, but it's about the pace. And Mark the Bird Fidrich, even the 1984 team. Art, you and I talked not too long ago about the 1968 team. Look at how fast those games moved. That's how you keep people engaged. The bird is the word, and that Monday Night Baseball game on ABC was a fast-paced game, just like that 84 game was. You guys are watching right now. All of those moved at a very quick pace. Remember, those World Series games were played at 4 o'clock, okay? And they're done by 7 easily. A lot of those games late at night during the season were starting at 8 o'clock, and players were out of the parking lot by 10:30. So it tells you how baseball can attract a younger generation if they do what they're supposed to do, I believe.
I think that's a great point, Matt. I think that pacing is so important. Are you a big fan of the trips to the mound, or limiting the trips to the mound, or a batter has like 15 seconds to in between pitches, or he can get out of the box, but he has to get right back in there? I mean, baseball's trying to make it a quicker paced game. Have you seen anything that you think actually works? Because the one thing I've always liked about baseball is there's no clock.
Yeah, I love that about baseball too. I have no problem with trips to the mound. I don't. My issue is when there's nobody on base, batters need to stay in the box. I mean, look at that game with the bird that Daniela was just referring to, or look at that 84 World Series, or any of the games during 84. Those guys are in the box and they're staying in the box. The pitcher gets the ball and throws the ball. It's not that complicated, right? I know the game has evolved a little bit, but it's still the basic throw, hit, catch, run. Why are guys standing out of the box for so long, looking down at the third base coach who's not giving them any signs and there's nobody on base? Keep them in the box, get the game moving, and everything will be just fine. You don't have to change the game of baseball that drastically to expedite the pace of play. If you just follow the rules, do what you're supposed to do. Pitcher get the ball, get the sign, and throw. Batter stay in the box if nobody's on. Let's go to work.
Back to your Twitter account for a second. You had another tweet that really stood out to me, and I'm excited to kind of hear you and Art both talk about this because I thought it was really interesting. The fans, when Jack Morris was on his way to pitching a no-hitter, the fans, White Sox fans, were cheering for him to get the no-hitter. And you said it makes you wonder if you could cheer against your team as a fan to see a little history. And you don't think so. But I want to hear you elaborate on that.
Well, there's no way. Look, Max Scherzer was one of my favorite Tigers, okay? He was really good here for 5 years. He's been even better in Washington, where he's won a couple of Cy Youngs, and congratulations to him for winning a world championship. But if you recall, it wasn't long ago, about 3 years ago, he pitched against the Tigers and he had 20 strikeouts. That tied a record. Roger Clemens did the same thing against the Tigers in the mid-90s. I know Art remembers that. Those are iconic efforts, all right? I like Max Scherzer, but I didn't want him to do that against the Tigers. You want to put 20 on the board, good for you. Do it against the Yankees. Do it against the Royals. Do it against the White Sox. I don't want them doing it against the Tigers. I can't go so far as to say, I want to see history made. I don't care if it's Patrick Waugh winning a certain game, Roger Clemens winning a certain game, or Brett Favre throwing for an X amount of number of touchdowns. I want my team to win. At no point am I going to root against my team so I can be selfish and see something historical?
I love that. And I have a feeling that Art feels the same way. Art, what do you think?
I know he does. I know he does.
I am. I will say this. Yeah, you want your team to do well, and you don't want to see history being made against your team, but you want to see your team make history. If that makes sense, you know. Right. And I will say this, though, and I'll go back, and, you know, Matt knows this. Hey, I love Michigan. I love Michigan football. I mean, it's, you know, it's kind of even a joke in the room, you know. Every time I look down, they say, what, did Michigan lose? You know, people always ask me. But when Cordell Stewart threw that touchdown pass that Ty Law almost knocked down, I have to admit, even though Michigan lost that game on the last play of the game, I was a little bit giddy because I knew I would never see that again, or I thought so. And then it happened like a dozen times against Michigan, or Michigan did it. But there is
right. I don't get that. I mean, Michael Westbrook caught it right. He's from Detroit, Chadsey. I don't, and that's one thing. But that was that historic though, Art? I mean, could you say that was necessarily historic?
Well, I guess in the University of Colorado annals, that's all they play all the time. So it's historic that way. But I mean, I think when you see something that you don't see every day, I think as a sports fan, for me, there is a moment where I do get a little bit, wow, that's incredible. I mean, you know, you could go to Mario Manningham. Wasn't that against Penn State where he won? Or a Mercury Hayes' catch against Virginia. I was right there in the end zone. He ran right in front of me. I think those moments that don't happen that often are extraordinary. But when something as historic as being a no-hitter pitch against your team, I think no question about it. As I said earlier, I want to see my team create history. I don't want to see history created against them.
All right, then I'll ask you this, because I don't know a bigger Wings fan than Art Regner, but I'll ask you this. The Redwings in 1996 won an NHL record 62 games. All right. I think they were like 62, 13-7 or something like that. It was one of the greatest teams I've ever seen. I mean, the performance was unreal, but they lost in the conference finals. So they made history, like you said, but they really aren't revered that historically because they didn't win the Stanley Cup. Doesn't that bother you? Doesn't it bother you that Colorado did something that really nobody else thought they could do, beating Detroit in a 7-game series after Detroit had set a record and then won the Stanley Cup? I know that's not necessarily historical in one event, but doesn't that bother you? Because that still eats at me to this day.
Well, you know, obviously that series eats at me for a lot of reasons. And obviously Lemieux's hit on Draper, one of the biggest, with, you know, one of the best, at least quotes in Detroit sports history, was Dino Ciccarelli after the game. I can't believe I shook the guy's freaking hand, you know, but I will say this. I think that moment what happened to them, because at that time, remember, hey, Steve Yzerman was not a great leader back then. Remember? Oh, well, he's never won anything. And, Team Canada, who, he led to, countless gold medals as their executive director, they didn't treat him well on those national teams either. I've talked to Steve about this. So I guess my point being is that in order for them to do what they did from 97 up till 2008, which is win 4 Stanley Cups, I think that was the final, betrayal, or the final insult to them was what happened to them in 96. You're right. They had 62 victories, 131 points, the second most only to Montreal, still the second most in NHL history. I think that had to happen in order for them to get over the hump. And what's really interesting about that, Matt, is that, you said the record like 62, 13, and 5 or whatever the heck it was.
Something like that, yeah.
They don't even remember how competitive were these guys? They don't remember those 62 wins. They remember all those 13 losses. I mean, when you walk into that room.
Detroit, I think with Detroit, what we got to do is we got to remember 95, they played for a championship. Now they got swept by New Jersey. And you and I covered that. Because I remember vividly sitting at Joe Louis Arena next to a couple of New Jersey writers, and they said, this series is over. I said, you guys will be back. How stupid do I feel now? But they played for a cup in 95, and then they played in 2009. We shouldn't remember just the fact that they won 4 and 11. We should remember the fact that they played for 6 in 13. That's still a hell of an accomplishment by that franchise. But I digress. We've been talking Tigers a lot, Daniela, talking about the classics. What I'd love to see a replay of the 1971 All-Star game at Tiger Stadium. Tiger Stadium has had 3 All-Star games, and I would love to see 1971, because in 1971, there were 19 Hall of Famers playing in that game. There were 6 homers by those Hall of Famers. And Frank Robinson, by the way, was the MVP. That was a pretty special event. Reggie Jackson hitting it off the light tower. We all know the stories. I'd love to see it again and show kids that type of greatness that played at Tiger Stadium.
I have one more question.
You know what I would like
or Matt, I have one more question about that. So Chicago fans, they're known to be pretty hardcore fans as it is. What do you think? Was it Jack Morris? Did people just love Jack Morris that much that they wanted to see him pitch the no-hitter? What do you think it was about that game?
I think it was they just wanted to see something historical. I think Cubs fans are more rabid, Daniela, than the White Sox fans are. You got to be one or the other, just like you have to be in New York. But I truly believe they just wanted to see something special that day. It didn't matter who was doing it. And getting behind Jack Morris is admirable. I mean, good for them as sports fans. Their team was only down 4-0, though. Jack Morris walked 7 guys in that outing. So he walked almost as many as he struck out. So for me, I would have a hard time getting behind an opposing pitcher. And in that case, it was Floyd Bannister who started it, getting behind an opposing pitcher just so he can no-hit my team when my team is still within reach. Look, it's a little different story in 2017 when Matthew Boyd in September is playing the same organization, the White Sox, and he's no-hitting them in the bottom of the 9th, and it's 12-0 Tigers. Now, if I'm Tim Anderson and the White Sox fans, I still don't want to be no-hit, but I can almost see it then, and Tim Anderson did end up taking a 2-0 changeup and hitting it to right center field to break up that no-hitter. But in a 4-0 game at home against a division rival, against a team in a city that is oftentimes linked with Chicago, no possible way could I do that as a member of Tigers Nation at Tiger Stadium or now Comerica Park.
I love it. And the Tigers still have a lot of their classic games to be run through the month of May. And this week, we've got a little bit of a heartbreaker tonight with the Galarraga almost perfect game, but that one actually did turn out pretty well in the end. And the Verlander no-hitter, and then you get into the 2013 Game 5, Boyd one-hitter. We've got so much more coming up. And then next week, we're going to get into the 2006 playoffs. Matt, which one of those are you most looking forward to watching?
Well, I loved watching Justin Verlander's no-hitter last night. That's special. You know, Justin Verlander to be able to do that and do it in a Tigers uniform is awesome. I like the playoff games. You know, it's been a while since we've done it. But I remember vividly this game because I had a chance to go to that game. My buddies and I were going to go to that game, and a couple of them were in from out of town, and I got them tickets. And I said, I'll tell you what, you guys go. We were all going to go up north for our annual golf outing the next day. I said, why don't you guys go, enjoy the night? They hadn't been to Comerica Park yet because they don't live in Detroit any longer. So I said, I'll give you guys the tickets, have some fun, and then we'll go up north the next morning. Lo and behold, Justin Verlander no-hits the Brewers. My buddy's got stories to talk about forever, and I'm sitting there watching it on TV, getting more upset by the moment. In a good way.
No.
So it's hard to pick just one. But look, those playoff games are special, don't you think? Anytime you get a chance to watch Detroit beat the Oakland A's, advance, beat the New York Yankees, and advance, I'm all for that. As long as we don't start seeing these World Series games where the Cardinals and the Giants beat them, because that breaks my heart all over again.
I was just on the last show saying that one of my favorite Tigers memories, actually probably my favorite Tigers memory, is Maglio Ordonez hitting the walk-off home run in 2006. That's got to be top of the list for me.
Off Houston Street. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, that was a blast. And what a way to bring, maybe that's a really good point, because 2006, nobody expected it, right? I mean, 2006, you were trying to hope that this team would kind of turn the corner. That was a surprise for many. It was kind of like the 2004 Pistons. Not many expected that. Now, our expectations changed as the season went on, but that 2006 team with the Tigers, I don't think anybody expected them to get that far. They were just looking for improvement. So, yeah, that's a memory I think that'll live in a lot of people's minds, especially Tigers fans.
Definitely. Art, which game are you looking forward to? You've actually been kind of quiet. I'm surprised. What's been going on?
Well, I can just listen to Matt Shepard talk all day. I get captivated, almost intoxicated with the wisdom that this man imparts every time he opens up his mouth. I
preach
guess
that to my kids.
Sure. Come on. Those, like I said, all your kids are extraordinary. You and Lisa did a great job. With that said, I think that Galarraga's almost perfect game is the game that I think we all should want and learn a life lesson. And the reason I mean that is because that call was so blown. But it's not so much for Jim Joyce, and he was really apologetic, and he didn't know. But it's what Galarraga, how he reacted, and what he did afterwards. I think that's the important thing about this. Sportsmanship sometimes is, Matt, how many discussions have you had over the years about the lack of sportsmanship? It seemed like every other day, some parent was beating up another parent in a little league game or something, just weirdness that happens. But for Galarraga to do that, to take out the lineup card, to shake everybody's hand, I mean, to me, that is perhaps it's definitely one of the classiest moves that's ever been done in sports. And again, being a native Detroiter, to see a Detroit player do that, just, elevate it. And because no one felt worse than Jim Joyce, but Galarraga let him know, hey, buddy, we're human beings, And I think for me,
but you can see Jim Joyce crying while Galarraga's handing the lineup card. Jim Joyce is crying. So nobody felt worse than Jim Joyce. You just wish you could peel back history, because it doesn't happen very often. There are 23 perfect games in the history of baseball. 23, that's it. No one has ever thrown one in a Tigers uniform. And Armando Galarraga should be that guy. Even a really good shot of the replay there while we were talking about it. Look at Jason Donald. Jason Donald puts his hands on his helmet like, I can't believe you just called me safe. I was definitely out, at least by a step. But you're right, Art. It's a great lesson we can all learn. The fact that how you handle yourself in the face of adversity, and you and I, we all three of us talked to a lot of coaches and a lot of great champions, right? Daniela's hosting in between periods at LCA with Chris Chelios, probably learns an awful lot from what he has to tell her. You can always learn something, but especially in the face of adversity, how those leaders and how those players handle themselves oftentimes reveals more character than when they win.
Right. But I do have to admit, I always turn that game off before Jim Joyce makes the call, because in my mind, I want it to be a perfect game. It's a perfect game in my mind.
Me too. Yep.
You guys can watch
I
that
get
tonight.
ticked off just thinking about it.
You know, the baseball game had 28 outs, right? 28 outs. And, you know, that was, you know, it's a shame. But then again, the way Galarraga handled it, you know, we could all learn from that.
Yep.
And tonight, you guys will have the opportunity to watch that game. And Art, if you decide to turn it off for that final play, I don't blame you. But you can watch the entire game because it was still pretty spectacular. And Matt, thank you so much for joining us for Brush Street Beat today. We really appreciate it. Always great to chat with you.
You bet. Anytime. You guys do a great job. Stay safe. Stay well.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Thanks again. And a big thank you to our friends at McLaren for bringing us Brush Street Beat this week and every week here on the Word on Woodward. And now, guys, we're going to get into our headliner interview. And this week, I'm going to give the reins to Dan Dickerson, and he's going to give you the headliner presented by Miller Lite.
And we are pleased to be joined by the Director of Amateur Scouting for the Detroit Tigers, Scott Pleiss. And Scott, there are so many questions that we have leading up to the amateur draft coming up, whenever that might be. It was originally scheduled in June. It's obviously might be pushed back during the suspension of play. Can you just, well, why don't we just start with how you're doing and how's everybody in your family? These are strange times, and your job certainly hasn't gotten any easier with the shelter-at-home orders.
Yeah, it's quite a bit different, Dan, and I appreciate you having me on, and hope you guys are doing well too. But everything's fine here. I think we're like everybody else. We're getting kind of tired of being around the house and ready to get out and get some things done. But it's just a little bit different times right now.
So the draft was June 10th. What is the current, do you have any updated information on when it might be now? I know it's still up in the air, but are you getting a feeling it's probably going to be more July than June?
No, I mean, we've got some information in the last few days that it's going to be June 10th. So it'll be the, you know, the earliest date they mentioned.
All right. Well, let's talk about Tigers. Overall, #1 pick for the second time in 3 years. There is certainly a lot of attention that goes with it. Let's start with how this current suspension of play, and you're at home and not at the office, surrounded by all your coworkers and scouts and people that you get ready for the draft with. How has it changed how you prepare for the June 10th draft?
Well, obviously, we're not watching players on the field right now. We're not seeing games and that sort of thing like we would be this time of year. We'd be going every day, different state, different ballparks, doing that kind of thing. But since we can't do that, we're doing a lot of analytics, a lot of video, a lot of communication in between the scouts and the cross-checkers and the national guys, and prepping lists and going over reports. And gosh, I think the other day, the last month, we probably wrote 700 video reports. So we're doing everything we can since we can't physically go to a game. Is basically what we're doing.
What do you feel you've lost by not being able to go out and scout guys individually? The loss of roughly 2 months worth of play from mid-March to certainly mid-May and into June for the College World Series. What do you feel like you've lost in terms of that ability to find that diamond in the rough, or to find not just that guy #1, but the guys in the later rounds?
Yeah, it's so different. I mean, obviously, when you see something, it's much better than video, even though video is a useful tool. But you just don't get to see how electric and how dynamic a player is off video. You just don't get that feeling when you're seeing him live, and that's everybody. So when I'm talking to my guys and they're telling me what they saw at the ballpark that night or the week before, it's a very different feeling of the excitement you hear out of their voice when they talk about a player, to how much they like him, where they think he should fit in the draft, such like that. But nothing replaces seeing him live, for sure.
And you think of how somebody's stock might change in those last few weeks or the last couple of months leading up to the draft. I mean, I'm guessing you can tell me a guy like Riley Green, a high schooler especially, he can really increase his draft stock in those weeks leading up to the draft. And I'm guessing, I know he was on a lot of short lists, but that's the kind of guy that can certainly change an impression or at least increase his stock with a couple more months of play.
Absolutely. That's a huge thing, especially for the college guys got to start. The high school guys, a lot of those guys, their seasons didn't even start. So they didn't get the opportunity to show us what they had, what they've maybe, maybe they worked out really hard in the off season. They're really prepared to show us, get in front of the scout in the spring. They didn't get a chance to do that, which is it's good and bad. Some of these guys were going to show us a different part of them, a different side of them. And some of these guys were going to go the other direction. And unfortunately, we didn't get to see either.
In every sport, at every draft position, it seems like you hear the key is to get the best player at that position. You don't draft for need because you're trying to reduce your chances of failing on a pick, or increase your chances, I should say, of succeeding on a pick. That is true. I've seen your quotes. We're going to get the best guy available. How obviously it's ideal at 1-1 that somebody separates themselves from the pack. Do you feel that's happened in the last since you began preparing for drafting number one overall?
Well, we've got it narrowed down to probably a handful of guys for our first pick, and we're still doing a lot of homework on those guys and making sure what we're doing there. But also, as you alluded to, I've said many times that we're going to take the best player. The best case scenario is when the best player fits a need, obviously, but we're still going to take the best player because you just can't. If you start getting selective and it may be by position or hitter over pitcher or vice versa, it just ends up biting you in the future, because you want the most impact you can possibly get for your organization, and that's the way you got to go.
Just to give fans a feel for how much things can change, I remember at the end of 2017, Brady Singer was a guy at that moment in the fall of 2017 was the guy that many thought the Tigers might draft at number one the next year. Well, by the next year, Casey Mize had rocketed to number one and Brady Singer had fallen. How much did in those final few months when you drafted Casey Mize in 2018, how much did he move up the charts, or did he kind of establish himself by, I don't know, the turn of the year or February, March as the guy that you were really expecting to pick at number one?
Well, Casey obviously separated himself that year and did really well, and he did everything he needed to do to be 1-1. But a lot of times what gets in the media and what we're looking at is obviously different. So we knew who these guys were. We like Brady. Brady's a great talent and a great person, and obviously we liked him too. But we had these other names right in there with him, and we were just waiting to see how it was going to pan out in the spring.
But that season really did help you determine, obviously, who went number one.
No question. Yeah, I mean, really, I mean, luckily, or however you want to say it for us, it became an easy decision. We thought at the end Casey was the best guy by far, and it made it a little easier to select him and not maybe grind it out over 2 or 3 or 4 guys.
You talk about the handful who you're looking at right now, and it seems like that short list would be, let's see, Spencer Torkelson, Austin Martin, Spencer Torkelson, Asa Lacey, a pitcher, Spencer Torkelson certainly seems to have rocketed up on everybody's list as the guy who separated himself from the pack. I know you're not going to tell us today who you're going to pick at number one, but can you just describe for fans, when you're talking about a first baseman hasn't been drafted at 1-1 since 2000, Adrian Gonzalez, versus a guy who, by all accounts, can play short, can play center field. I guess he's also can play at third base. Some of the factors that you weigh, because position does matter. You're also weighing the bat, but you're weighing the position and his defensive abilities as well.
Well, for Spencer, obviously, he is a first baseman right now. He's a good athlete, though. He's not just a guy that you stick over there and he's going to hit for you. So he's going to hit. He's going to show you the power. And I wouldn't rule out him doing another position. He's that athletic. He's shown that, and he could possibly do that. And that'll be a discussion for later, whoever gets him. But Austin Martin, a tremendous athlete, played multiple positions, good hitter, shows power, stuff like that, a different dynamic in him. Asa Lacy, top of the rotation stuff, left-handed, great body, good stuff. I mean, we really have, and there's more, but we really have a good list of guys to pick from. I just wish we had more time to see him.
Yeah, and that, like you said, go back to that, being able to have eyeballs on makes a difference. Describe how analytics, you've mentioned it, we've certainly talked about it through the years, how much Al Avila has beefed up the analytics department, but how does it help, compared to, say, 2 years ago, help you, try to figure out and project a high school kid or a junior coming out of college, for that matter, try to project them, their development and what they might do at the major league level. Has it been, even in 2 years, kind of leaps and bounds, and how much that helps?
Oh, Dan, Al has done a tremendous job getting those tools for us. And it almost verifies what you saw or what you think you're going to project on a player, or what you don't see or what you don't like about a player. It kind of verifies also. Just way more information that we're getting now, credible information that has helped us tremendously. And, for a long time, we weren't, up to speed on that. And we've really, really hit it hard. And we've made big strides, and Al and Jay and everybody else have done a tremendous job to get us up to speed now.
Scott, give us a feel for, I know you're spending so much time preparing for the June 10th draft, but you're also, I'm sure, thinking ahead. This is going to be a shortened draft, whether it's 5 rounds or whether it's 10 rounds, maybe short again next year. Some high school kids that might have gone in the draft might now go to college. Some juniors who might have come out might go back for a senior year of college. The landscape for you and your job as director of amateur scouting is really going to, you're going to have some real challenges, it seems like, in the coming years, because of the interruption in play this year, the interruption in play for these high schoolers and college kids.
Correct. And I've said this on other interviews, and I've spoken about it before. Really, the process, other than the difference between not going to games physically, the process is pretty much the same behind the scenes, with getting our data together, knowing the makeup, the signability, their history, all that kind of stuff. So the process will remain the same. So we'll work at that and make sure we're prepared. And pretty much that's always the same, is do everything you can possibly do to be 100% prepared, so there's no surprises at the draft. A little bit different this year because the rules have changed a little bit. We don't know. Like you said, it's either going to be 5 rounds or 10 rounds. There's an extra year of eligibility in there. There possibly, if we do 5 rounds, there's, the draft money will be different. So it'll be different for the agents. It'll be different for the players. It'll be different for us. So everybody's walking on a little softly on how they're going to figure out how to do this. So our job is to prepare for everything and know the players as well as we can know them, and then just be prepared for whatever situation comes our way.
I know you're not in charge of the minor leagues, but you're obviously very interested in, once you draft these guys, to see them develop. And that's going to be obviously a big issue this year. What are some of the possibilities? Because fans want to know. This is a farm system, a Tiger farm system that's gone from maybe bottom 5 to, well, in many cases I've seen top 10, as high as number 6 in all of Major League Baseball. You want those guys to continue to develop, and the minor leagues, it's going to be a little bit tricky this year to play games. What do you envision in terms of, I think of the Riley Greens and the Parker Meadows of the world, the guys who are at the lower minor league levels? How will they get a chance to continue to develop their skills this year, if not in the absence of a minor league season, in a shortened minor league season?
Well, that's a really big hit. I know all the focus is always on the major league team and what's going to happen there, and that's obviously the way it should be. But for us, looking at our players, our prospects, it's going to be very difficult for them, and you can't get it back. So I don't know what's going to happen. I don't think anybody does as far as the minor league season, whether it's a short season, no season, whatever. Can we get together later? I don't know. Nobody really knows yet, but it's a tough hit. These guys need to get on the field. They need to compete. They need to progress and develop. And this is just missed time that they're not going to get back.
Just to wrap up, 1-1 pick. It sounds like this is a fairly deep draft, and it sounds like you're going to be pretty happy with the guy you get at 1-1, whoever that might be.
Yes, Dan, I tell you what, it is a deep draft. We're not only going to be happy there, our picks that we have, obviously we're getting a comp pick and we're picking first pick in every round. So that's a big deal. Everybody likes that 1-1, and I do too, but those early picks in every round are a huge help. So we're looking forward to it, whether it's 5 or 10, and we're going to have a good draft, and we'll be ready to go, and hopefully we can get on the field at some point.
That's the whole key. We're all looking forward to that, aren't we?
Yes.
Scott, thank you so much. We appreciate your time, and we'll look forward to that June 10th draft to see who's at 1-1.
Yeah, me too. Thanks, Dan. I appreciate it.
All right, take care. The headliner is presented by Miller Lite, the original light beer with great taste and only 96 calories, now available for delivery. Back to you, Daniela.
Thank you, Dan, and thank you, Scott, for joining us. It was great to hear from him, and very interesting to hear kind of the behind the scenes of the MLB draft and what goes into it. And Art, I think it was particularly interesting to hear about the analytics side of things, which we know the Tigers have recently tried to beef up a little bit.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, that's the way the game's moving forward. I think what's interesting is because obviously I've covered a lot of drafts in my day from the NHL level. I've never heard the term 1-1 before, which I really like. So I'm going to start using that a lot. But regardless of sport, the approach is always the same when you're looking for players. And, I thought it was really, really interesting and insightful talking about, like you said, the analytics, how they all look at it, because it doesn't matter if they're talking about a hockey player, a baseball player, a football player, or a basketball player. I would imagine if you talk to a scouting director, an amateur scouting director for any of those sports, they essentially are applying the same rules, looking for the same things, whether the skill set be that apply to their specific sport. So I thought it was fascinating. I really did. I'm a geek. I'm into that stuff. So I thought a job well done, and it was very, very interesting. And I think that Torkelson has to be the guy. That would be me if I were making the pick. If I were making the pick. But power hitting first baseman, going 1-1, they don't go very far. They don't go that often. 1-1. I would love to see that. I mean, I think because he's in college, he's probably closer to being major league ready. And let's be honest, the Tigers could use some power. I mean, that's why they got Scope and Cron, and Miggy comes back this year. He's in better shape. He's lost some weight. Get those power numbers up, and you can almost look. If you look at the Tigers lineup 1 through 9, I think that there is power there. You add a bat like Thorkelson, and if he can translate his college game into the major leagues, and granted, that might be a bit difficult, or there'll be a bit of a learning curve. That's a guy I like. I mean, nothing against Austin Martin and all the other guys, but that's I almost said Austin Matthews, but that's Austin Matthews. If he could be a sport athlete, play for the Leafs, but play for the Tigers. But anyway, the way I look at it, and I don't know. I have no idea what the Tigers are going to do, but it's everything. Torkelson is the guy that perhaps would be the way I would be leaning. Just my 2 cents.
1-1 pick, right? Spencer Torkelson. That would be it. All right, you heard it here from us.
You're going to hear. I'm sorry, Daniel. I didn't mean to cut you off there. You're going to be hearing me say 1-1 a lot. I love it. 1-1. Very rarely does a Detroit team get a 1-1. in any sport. And, and the Tigers, a couple times in the last couple of years, or last 3 years or so. So a 1-1 pick, I'm all about the 1-1 pick.
We'll find out who they take on June 10th in the MLB draft. Now we're going to move on to Let's Socialize, presented by our friends at AAA, rather. And we are going to bring in Carly Johnston for this one. She is all over our social media accounts. And Carly, I'm going to let you take this one over. What do you got for us today?
Thanks, Danielle. All right, let's get into it, guys. It is time to socialize, as you said. So I've been monitoring the social media questions and have a few for you guys today. First up, Art E.C. Clark on Twitch wants to know, with Seattle coming into the league, who might the Red Wings lose in the expansion draft?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Wow, that is a really good question. I don't think they thought they were going to lose Thomas Nosek. Remember with Vegas, they probably thought it was going to be Peter Mrazek because they left him unprotected. I would say at this point, wow, that is such a good question. And I don't know what the roster is going to look like, because Steve isn't done tinkering by the time the expansion draft happens next summer. I think there's a variety of players. You could go veteran players. Certainly guys like Justin Applicator is not going to be protected. Does Seattle want to take a good veteran leader, a guy who's worn a letter for a long, long time? Or will it be somebody that might be on the cusp? Perhaps a guy, I know Joe Hickens is only under contract through next season, but somebody like Joe, if the Red Wings don't leave him unprotected, I think so. I think going along those lines, maybe a forward, depending on what they do with some of their young forwards, perhaps a Darren Helm, although I think he's in the last year of his deal. I mean, a lot of that is predicated on contracts, how much guys have left. And, I think that that's a really good question. It's a really tough question. And I think next year at this time, I'll probably give a much better answer because it'll be more clearer. The one thing I will say is based on how Steve handled his first year here back as I like to call him, the overlord of the Red Wings, what he's going to do this year, what he's going to do this year, I can't wait to see. And so based on that, I can give you a much better indication of what this roster is going to look next year, who the Red Wings will protect and who they won't protect. Guys like Mo Sider, Joe Veleno, they're all exempt, Zadina, so they don't have to protect them. So that's why it should be fun. It should be fun. But, I think look for a veteran winger or defenseman and probably a couple of goalies that might be under a contract to them. But, goalies are, unless it's Marc-Andre Fleury, who was a no-brainer for Vegas, who made them the franchise that they are relatively quickly. I think that, they're going to lose somebody, and it might be somebody of significance, but the pipeline, they're going to draft, guys this year, like 10 draft picks. And then next year, I think they have another 10. They're going to add like 50 players in a 4-year period. So the cupboard is not bare, which is a good thing, regardless of who they may lose to whatever the Seattle's team is going to, the Krakens, I think is the leader right now I'm going to call them that, the Seattle Krakens. So, but we'll see. You know what a Kraken is? Good
question for Art. Yes, I do know what a Kraken is, Art. Come on, haven't I showed you how knowledgeable I am?
No. Hey, I didn't know what a Kraken was until Game of Thrones, but I will say this: I'm a little disappointed you've substituted your mason jar full of moonshine with that coffee cup.
Oh yeah. I'm like on my 3rd cup of coffee. Art, I heard you on your 2nd cup earlier, so I had to make sure I poured a couple while you guys were on. All right, moving on. Daniela, the Golden Chip 16 wants to know, who's your favorite Detroit Red Wings dog? That's a good question. I mean, they're all cute, obviously.
Yeah, there's a ton of great dogs, and I'm glad that Art got that really tough question because that was definitely for Art. But dogs. I love dogs. And I have to say that I think I'm going to give this one to Dylan Larkin with his new puppy, Ellie. And everyone's been kind of on the quarantine puppy kick. It's the perfect time to get a puppy. And Carly, I know you were talking about it, and I'm still waiting for you to get one.
I'm waiting too. I want one so bad. Ugh. Salt the wound, Daniela. All right. Chris Pame wants to know, will Alavila add another veteran to the Tigers when the season resumes? So what are your thoughts on that?
I think at this point that Alavila kind of likes where the team is at, and he probably wants to let them play some games. I mean, obviously, depending on who's available, or, they're talking all the time. If the right deal comes his way, then any general manager is going to make that deal if he thinks it's going to help his team. But I think what he may do is I think he's going to come out of the gate with this club, see where they go. If things are going well, he's probably going to try to keep it as it is. Maybe being an influx of talent from the minor leagues, maybe perhaps a Manning, Casey Mize, maybe they'll get their shot. I'd love to see Riley Green. I guess that might be a pipe dream, but Riley, I'm right there for you, buddy. But I think, though, if it does not go well and the team is not playing well, then I think obviously he's going to try to acquire some talent, and that will be a veteran. I would assume it would be a bat. I still think that that they would try to probably go out and get get a little more power in that lineup. It all depends. I mean, obviously, if there's injuries involved to your pitching staff, then you would look for a pitcher. I mean, there's so many variables that would go into that. But again, they start off well. I think he's going to hold the fort, so to speak. If they don't, then obviously he's going to be looking for an addition.
All right, awesome. Daniela, JJ4 is asking if you think the Tigers will have an opening day. I mean, I sure hope so. It's like a holiday in Detroit with all the festivities going on.
Yeah.
So what do you think? Do you think it'll be an opening day?
Yeah, and my answer to that is, yeah, the Tigers are going to have an opening day. Their first game that they play will be their opening day. Maybe not to the extent of the festivities that Detroit is used to, because like you said, Carly, it's like a holiday here. Everybody loves opening day. But the Tigers will have an opening day, and it will be their first game. We don't know exactly when that will be, but hey, I'm hoping it's tomorrow. I've got my baseball hats all lined up and ready to go.
I love it. All right, shifting gears. On Instagram, we saw both Red Wings and Tigers players honoring people in the medical field on Nurses Day using the hashtag #TheRealHeroes. So let's check out some of those pictures. It was really awesome to see the frontline workers really deserve this recognition right now during this COVID pandemic. So let's see a couple of those shots. So we have everyone from Glendenning to Howard. I know Nico Goodrum and Buck Farmer had their jerseys held up with the name of a frontline worker taped to the back of it. I know Art and Daniela, you guys posted yours as well.
Yeah, we did. It was so great to see everybody kind of taking part in this special day. Like you said, Carly, our frontliners really deserve this, and they deserve it all the time, but especially right now when all of us are kind of uncertain about what's going on, and they're out there fighting for all of us. And there you can see some of the Tigers with their names on the back of the jerseys too. It was just a really great cause. And I know Art, yours was really special.
Well, right. I mean, I did the head team physician, Dr. Anthony Colucci, and then team nutritionist Lisa McDowell, who is a COVID-19 survivor. She had it. She was quite sick there. I think she had 104 fever for 9 straight days, and still is coughing to this day. But she's back at work. So what those two have done out on the front lines. Tony, or Dr. Colucci, runs an emergency department at a local hospital. You just have to really tip your cap to everybody and what they did. But I just thought it would be special to honor those two, because they are they're extraordinary people, as you two very, very well know. And what a great cause. It's great to see Red Wings and Tigers step up and just kind of integrate themselves into the community. Is just great to see. I mean, obviously there's nothing great about a pandemic with a loss of life, but when you can see people rallying and, we're all in this together, Detroit together, all that, I think that, it's just really, really good. And, hey, and the guys look happy. I love Jimmy's jersey. That's the one of the classic Winter Classic jerseys that has the silver Stanley Cups on it. So very, very nice touch there, Howie.
All right, and now for the moment we've all been waiting for, I have the results of the flow off between Art and Joe Valeno. So can I get a drum roll, please? The winner is Joe Valeno. Sorry, Art. I will say though, Joe voted for you, so who's the real winner here?
Well, I would have voted for Joe, but I said I was going to. Then I completely forgot about it. Very, very short attention span by me. But I'm going to say this, and Joe, this goes right to you, my friend. When you get to be my age, hopefully you have that, what I think is a beautiful, lustrous head of hair. But it'd probably be a little bit salt and pepper, but I think I think you'll have it. But I am envious. Hair was never a big issue for me. I'm from that generation where hair was huge. It was almost a political statement. My senior picture, I had to get my hair cut, and I got it cut to shoulder length. My dad wasn't real happy about it, but I did. But I guess what I'm saying is, as I've gotten older and more of my friends have lost their hair, they're so envious that I still have it. So, thanks. I guess my grandfather on my mom's side, that's what that isn't that how it works out? So thank you. Thank you, you old Greek guy. Thanks to you, Harry. Grandpa, love you, buddy.
You have to get Art. See what your hair looked like back in the day.
Oh, it was it was beautiful. It was beautiful.
It was kind of like yours, picture on his. I might go get this real quick while we talk about that.
My hair used to look like Carly's. Danielle, it wasn't quite as long as yours.
Well, you know the story of my hair.
This is what Art looked like back when he was in his 20s.
Yeah. You know how I look? Just look at Carly. Look at Carly. That's exactly how I looked when I was younger. I was absolutely beautiful.
Wait, so I look like you when I'm your age?
I don't know how old you were here, Art, but this one's pretty good. The glare's getting it. Can you see it?
Oh, there
I
we
can
go.
tell you that is me in Ann Arbor. I'm in Ann Arbor, Michigan. It's in my, I talked about him, Uncle Jake, Jared Zerman's room, and you can tell I am feeling no pain in that picture. We're having a really good time that day. Must have been finals must have been over, and we can let loose.
Oh man, you're making my ass hard.
So we have to do. So I wanted to give a shout out.
Ready.
We're still on it. Okay. I wanted to give a shout out to Hank on Facebook. He posted a picture of his deconstructed washing machine, saying he's been looking for a sock he lost at the beginning of the lockdown. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Hank. Thanks for always tuning into the Word on Woodward. We notice you and we hope you find your sock very soon. It must be a very special sock to deconstruct your washing machine.
I don't know how he even has time to watch the show. And let me tell you, Hank is one of our biggest fans. He watches the show all the time. So thank you, Hank. But how do you even have time to do that when you have your washing machine destruction like that?
That's a lot of different pieces. I'll spread out on the ground. I'll tell you that much.
Well, I'll tell you something. More power to Hank there, because if that were me, because I flunked shop in school, so I am not really good, mechanically with my hands. It would be a washboard and a big big tin or something full of water, and I would be doing it with my hands. So I hope it works for you.
Love it.
I have
we appreciate all our fans. We appreciate all our fans. We wanted to give a shout out to all of you guys. Thanks so much for watching. And Danielle, take it away.
Thank you, Carly. That was great. That was probably one of my favorite segments of the whole show so far. That was awesome. Let's Socialize, presented by our friends at AAA. So a big thank you to them. AAA says thank you with free roadside assistance for first responders and healthcare workers fighting to defeat COVID-19. You protect us by going to work every day. Let AAA protect you on the way there and back. Art, I didn't get to say this with Carly on, but I did go and vote for you. I saw that Joe was beating you by a landslide, so I had to give you a vote.
Well, first of all, I'm not surprised by that. Joe should have won. I endorsed him right when the campaign started between us. But I mean, let's put it this way: Joe's hair is 1-1 in my book. I know Mo Sider has a pretty good head of hair, but Joe, you're a 1-1 when it comes to hair. I don't think anybody could beat you. Look at that. Just look at that. That is
great.
My hair doesn't look bad. I actually, the comic was working for me that day, or the 3 that I have, the 1 in the back and the 2 right there in the front. But the good picture though. I compliment the photographer over there at Little Caesars Arena that did that for me. Nice job.
Your hair looks great.
I can't even recognize it. Oh yeah, sure it does. I mean, you know what? It's good. Obviously, I haven't been able to cut it, and so now the longer it gets, the more unruly it's going to become. No matter how much product I put in it, all that kind of stuff, this hair is going to be all over the place, and I do apologize.
But at least I have some product. Maybe I'll go shopping and get you some, and I can ship it to you. I'll get you the good stuff. We can try it out.
Okay, thank you, Daniela, because I know that you are really great on your hair.
Yeah, of course, always. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining the Word on Woodward today. And all of you that are watching right now, I hope that you have the District Detroit app downloaded and ready to go, because Hockeytown Trivia starts at 2 p.m. That is just 5 minutes away. So right when we sign off here, get over to the District Detroit app, join Hockeytown Trivia, and see if you can come out on top. Because if you do, the Red Wings are going to send you an awesome little prize pack, and it's great. It's so much fun. I know that you guys are probably like, there's no way she plays because she's never good at the trivia games that they play on the show. But you guys have a chance. It would be great.
Yeah, definitely. Trivia is fun. Hey, I wanted to make an announcement. I've had a lot of people since we began the Wood on Woodward ask me, when is Craig Button, the scouting director from TSN, going to be on because of the draft? And I've been in contact with. He's been really busy, but Craig Button, hopefully, and I'm almost 100% sure, will be on next either Tuesday's or Thursday's show. So that's something for Red Wing fans to and just draft fans, to look forward to, because Button has the inside scoop. He's so into even the NHL general managers, and maybe even the Red Wings overlord Steve Yzerman. I think they even respect him. So that should be fun next week.
You almost went a whole show without talking about Steve Yzerman. I think you said it once in the beginning, but you almost went an entire show without saying his name.
You know what, Danielle? It's now a drinking game, I guess. So every time I mention Steve Yzerman, somebody or somewhere all over the world is doing a shot. So, don't worry. I'm thinking of you guys.
Oh, that is awesome, Art. And yeah, hopefully we have Craig Button, and we're going to have Robbie Fabry, Jimmy Howard, everybody, Daniel Norris. He's also scheduled for next week. So it's going to be a big week for us on the Word on Woodward. And we thank you guys so much for joining us. And lastly, we hope that you guys are going to tune into these classic games that we've been talking about on Fox Sports Detroit. I know Art's going to be watching tonight, but he's going to turn it off at the end. We already know that. Tomorrow we've got the Verlander no-hitter, and I know I'll be tuning into that one. No-hitters are really fun. And then Saturday, we've got the ALDS 2013 Game 5. There's just really a whole slate of games for the next 2 weeks to keep everybody and sports fans happy everywhere, because I know we're all itching to watch some sports. And like I said, Art will definitely be watching tonight. And then this after May 18th, so in a couple weeks down the road, we've got the 2012 Tiger seasons and All-Star games. And you heard Matt Shepard say he wants to watch an All-Star game. He likes rewatching the All-Star games. Art, those are really cool to rewatch, especially ones from 65, 75, 81. That's really cool.
Well, right. The good thing about that is why the All-Star games back then, when I was coming up, and was that there was no interleague play. So the only time the American League and the National League ever played it, unless it was during the preseason or exhibition season, was the World Series. So the only time you saw National League players play against American League players was the All-Star game. Now, interleague play is great. I'm not taking anything away from it. It's cool to have these National League teams come in to Comerica Park to watch them. But it was really special back then. Like Matt said, in that 71 All-Star game, Roberto Clemente, Hank Aaron, these guys were at Tiger Stadium. So, that stuff is great. And so All-Star games are always good. By far by far the baseball All-Star game is the best. It's the most competitive. They want to play. I wasn't a big fan of that whole, whoever wins the All-Star game gets home field advantage in the World Series. But since the American League seems to win it all the time, I really like that now. I do. All-Star games are the best. They're the best. A baseball All-Star game cannot be beat.
Very, very cool. So make sure you guys are tuning into those on Fox Sports Detroit this week, next week, and all through May. And of course, make sure you get right over to the District Detroit app and join Hockeytown Trivia. That starts at 2 p.m. So in just 1 minute, get your phones out and get ready to go. Art, as always, pleasure working with you, and we will see all of you on Tuesday.
Yeah, definitely. Danielle, you have a good weekend.
You too, Art.